Hello, hello. Another. Gotta zoom in for the better font. Another day. Another destiny. That's from Les Mis. Anyways, topic of today's video that I wanted to talk about was education. Education. And I don't really have any ideas for it, man. Fuck this shit. No. Just some feelings, you know. And it's a complicated topic, and I don't think there's any easy solution, but I think the current methods we have now don't work for a lot of people, and I think we can do better, and if there's a possibility that things can be better, I think it's worth having a conversation about and seeing what can be done, areas of improvement, why it has failed, you know. Not that it has failed, but I don't think it's great, you know. I hear a lot of people like talk about my trauma, you know, like, man, school taught me some things that I've had to unteach myself, you know, like, I didn't really know who I was and I was just getting shafted. Well, that's kind of my own experience, but, you know, I don't know. I just feel like it could be better. And I've heard the argument, you know, like, well, what's your plan B, you know, it's good enough. And I'm like, that's such a shitty argument, you know? It's like, oh, it's not worth trying anything different because it's not possible, you know? Like, this is the best we have and this is the only thing we have. And it's like, no, you just don't have a fucking imagination. You see a brick wall and you're like, oh, can't go past it. But I'm like, did you try walking around, you know? You gotta think outside the box. And so, let's touch upon why it fails. Let's make sure I'm recording this. Because, well, I don't know. Um, well, first of all, I think a lot of people find the knowledge useful. Not useful, knowledge. Useless. You know, I think it's a common experience. I mean, this talks about university too, where you get out of college, you get out of high school, and you don't really feel like you've learned anything practical. Like, you've been taught a bunch of things, but nothing that really lets you shape the world around you. It's all very passive. It's like bio, chem, physics, math, English, foreign language, whatever else, extracurricular nonsense, history, whatever. This is besides the point. But then you're like, whoa, what's my purpose? Like purpose. And that's more of a philosophical question. But none of these skills help you get a job. And it's like, well, not everything's for jobs, you know. This is kind of teaching you about the foundational knowledge of our objective reality. Like, you can't play jazz if you don't know chords. So, someone say, oh, it's basic, you need to do this before you can do anything else. But, you know, a lot of what humans are built to do is not really, achieve some grandiose, spiritual enlightenment or really understand the world around them. That's kind of like a luxury reserved for the people who already have a place in the world. But if you don't have a place in the world, you kind of have to find one because survival comes before, I don't know how you show, you know, doing cool shit. So you kind of have to go for survival first before you can do cool shit. Like if you don't have a place in the world, you don't really have the luxury to be spending time like fucking I don't know, learning about the solar system or something. It's like, no, we gotta get food in the tummy. Gotta get the yum yums. It's like, you're trying to bake a cake for a good life, and they just, you know, give you a fork and knife and teach you how to eat, but don't give you the food. I need the food first before I can really, you know, enjoy it with my silverware. Second of all, another reason why I think it fails is because school was optimized for an earlier basis of knowledge. Like, the kind of knowledge that's demanded in this day and age is not really the same as before. So, I think before, I'm thinking like 20th century, 1900s. These subjects were in their, like, we had the Industrial Revolution, and that allowed a large masses of people to start taking, the foundational steps towards exploring this kind of stuff. Like, it was very early days. So what I'm gonna do now is kind of have a little metaphor, like, imagining all this is the human corpus of knowledge. And so, like, things were just really starting. Like, obviously there was the groundwork. I mean, these things were being done even before, you know, the Industrial Revolution, but things really sped up afterwards. Like, we had just had the basic stuff, like, I don't know, gravity, uh, I don't know, grammar was being ironed out. Well, not really, that was probably done way before. I'm not really sure. I'm not feeling like I have a good explanation for that. But anyways, it's like a tree, like, and it branches off into different nodes, and, math will be like, oh, it's topology, or, or, what is it, real, I don't know, applied math. number theory, and things like branch off, just a giant web of ideas, you know, all branching off. But in this current day and age, the space of like knowledge has traveled very far. This is like the beginning. And now we're like over here, and there's just lots of different pockets, you know, and you have to travel pretty fucking far to get here. It's a lot of specialization, you know, just a giant tree with different webs. And so this would be like where the careers are at, you know. There's just applying, maybe one step before the frontiers, but they're at the edge too, you know, of what's being done. And so I think schools were good, you know, when things were here, and they'd give you like basis, you know, to get to your point and get to be useful. But things expand, you know, knowledge has expanded. You can't keep giving us like this small circle when the things people are doing are like way out here, you know? Like we're just like, okay, you graduated high school, you're here, but you can't really do anything. You still have to travel this far to get to the edge, you know? This is where the work's being done. And so, my feeling is that we have to throw out this kind of old way of learning, you know? Well, at least not throw it out, but introduce a new way, you know? Everything's balance. It's like they say, balance in all things. We can't give people the map anymore, you know? Because it's expanded so much. It's hard to, there's limits on what people can learn. Like, the map of everything would be too hard. You just have to give people the tools to figure how to, you know, find their way around knowledge um, if they're placed in an unfamiliar spot. So it's like the difference between, you know, giving a recipe, I guess, you know. These are the recipes. You gotta do this, 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 versus like teaching them the theory, you know. Garlic is good for, I don't know what garlic, savory. Sugar, good for sweet. Don't do this. You know, it's like instructional based learning versus pattern based learning. Because I think this mirrors, you know, what's going on in the computer world, where it's like the CPU is good, but the GPU is really good. And basically, so this reflects it because like a CPU is like step by step, versus a GPU is parallel processing. And kind of what I mean by this is like instead of just like executing commands 1, 2, 3, 4, you you know, do some matrix multiplication to find some action based on adjacent topics. So I don't know what the weights would be or whatever, but you'd be like, it's like I said earlier, it's like I think philosophy and biology should be mixed. So when I come up with an idea on human behavior, it'd be like this much philosophy, this much biology, this much, I don't know, this would be like a TV episode I watched, I guess, or this is what a coworker said, and then, or what I've seen with personal experience, and then I come out with the output versus like, oh, in this scenario, like Nietzsche said or whatever, or I don't know what's another philosopher, Rousseau. Like, obviously, I'm not going to say, you know, the one way is the best way. Like, you should only be doing this. Obviously, you know, you'll have some competitive advantage if you're like being able to execute your speciality and actually know what's going on. Like the recipe, you'd be able to, if you know the recipe and the recipe's related, that's great. But, there's a lot of moving pieces. You need to know the theory too, You can't just rely on memorization. In this day and age, you need pattern-based thinking to be able to kind of find your way around things, like things aren't as simple as they used to be. Um, but of course, I guess another counterpoint is people have been making things simpler, which is a good idea, like, I don't know what coding in assembly would be like, but Python's freaking easy. You just do like print, hi, easy. But of course, the things you're being asked to make are more complex too, so, Um, as for the social aspect, I don't know, that's a hard thing to say. Personally, I don't really agree with the idea of just putting all the same kids in the same, like, of the same age in the same um, classroom. Obviously, brains are developed differently. You can't expect a 5-year-old to run as fast as a, like, 13-year-old. So the conditions of the race have to be different, obviously. But, when we're talking about knowledge, I feel like knowledge should be passed down because I think that's what feels right. You know, people see and then they share and they see and they share and they see and they share versus just like these are the people touching the world, they're actually interacting with the world versus just like, oh, we have these ideas on what the world is and we're gonna put it in a book and we're gonna tell it to people. And kids are gonna learn to interact peer to peer. But peer to like someone else is a question mark. I personally think diversity is good. You know, different perspectives increases knowledge. So I'm a little disappointed. I know there have been some ideas about different ages and different classrooms, but I think there is something to be said about that. It kind of feels weird to me to just have this. I can't really explain it, but it just feels weird to have that. Just a bunch of kids of the same age all together. It changes the social game, you know? It's not the same as when you get out. You know, you're in for 20 years behind the cage, and then you like actually break out, and then you have to adapt. It's a different game. What gets valued in this hierarchy is different in this one. So you've been optimizing for one game, and it turns out to be a completely different game over here. I don't know. And that's kind of a shock. Just seems kind of weird, you know? Things have been going along because people, you know, it's like, oh, it's good enough. I don't really know how I can solve it. People need to know. But if no one respects it anymore, no one thinks, oh, you have a degree, you know, that means you know stuff. It's more like, oh, you have a degree, you know, I guess you're, I don't really know what a good degree means. It's like you did that because you were told to, you know, you did that shit because you were told to, just like me, you know, like, I guess that makes you like one of us, but it doesn't really show any competency, you know, at least in my mind. Maybe I'm just a hater though. So, it's not just the topics, it's the social aspect as well. And I think there's a philosophical angle too. And why is it fucking 8 hours? And why are people told to be silent? You know, the kids are just supposed to sit down and shut up. Man, human expectancy only was only 25 years a while ago or some shit like that. And if you spend 20 years of your life just in school, that's fucking depressing, man. That's a depressing. People need to live, you know. They need to break free from this little jail cell. There's so much to the world, you know. The natural world too, you know. You're keeping them in like these enclosed spaces, and you're wondering why they fucking people are depressed because they go from one box, their house, to school, which is another box. It's the same sensory inputs. There's nothing unique. You know, they say why travel is good is because you get different sensory inputs, which kind of increases neuroplasticity, which neuroplasticity is your brain kind of rewiring itself. And then you get to transform, you know? Here you're just stuck in stasis. You're not really transforming the individual. And people are like, what can be done? What can't be done? Well, first we have to admit that it's not fucking okay. And just because we escape this shit doesn't mean we should just let it go. We should design systems that can be better, you know? If something feels wrong, there's a good chance it's actually wrong. Someone else is feeling it too. kind of like what I was saying in the other video, like sensory experience can be shared. You know, two people see a tree, they both agree, like, hey, that's a tree. If you feel something, that's another one of our senses. Someone else might have felt it too. So, I don't know what the solution. It's a tricky problem. It's definitely tricky because everyone has, you know, ideas, I guess. But what's the best one, you know? People are so different. Everyone's brain are different, you know? Knowledge is always changing what's valued, you know? And at some point, you know, I guess people consider it a hierarchy. You know, there needs to be a way of filtering out people, but to me that's kind of wrong, you know? I don't really think of myself better than anyone. I don't really want to push someone down. I'd rather do peer-to-peer. I mean, I'm hoping we're getting to that point where we don't have to compete anymore, but probably not. But that's fucking weird to me. That the idea would be to, you know, push some people down. I don't know. Seems kind of weird. In any case, this video is pretty long, so I can't really continue this. I don't know. It's complicated. The answer is not going to be easy. I think it's worth pursuing. Lots of considerations. I don't think we should. I don't think we have to abandon the old ways, but we need to build on them. You know, make things better. Don't just accept things for how they are, but how they could be. And that's pretty much just